reading module is considered as the toughest part of PTE, but we have a solution for this. If you face problems in solving reading, you can purchase our reading course, which includes essential grammar rules for each type of questions that may help to ace your score. Call us for more information on 95880-68207 or 63679498840. Thank you.
A conventional sales is when the home is owned outright, or the seller owes less on the mortgage than fair market value. Conventional sales involve quicker transactions between both parties, unlike foreclosures, short sales, and probate sales. We typically recommend conventional sales for our buyers, especially first-time home buyers, to help them avoid the complications they could run into when dealing with distressed properties or probate sales. For a majority of buyers who are looking to purchase and move into their dream home as soon as possible, conventional sales are the way to go. Oftentimes, distressed properties can take many months for the seller's bank to approve an offer, or for a court date to be set in the case of a probate sale.
When the unsuspecting operator introduces it into the computer, the alien program will take over the machine. With Trojans, you have to be particularly careful because they can often be introduced by way of a message advertising an antivirus product. So what motivates someone to introduce a virus into the computer systems of innocent victims? Perhaps it's simply the desire to prove that it can be done. Or because it gives the kind of pleasure you get from solving a difficult problem. Nowadays people protect their computers with all sorts of security software, so it takes considerable skill to break through all the defenses and introduce a virus.
Land reclamation has been carried out along the coast of Tokyo Bay since the Meiji period. Areas along the shore, with a depth of less than 5 meters, are simplest to carry out landfill, and sand from the floor of Tokyo Bay is used for these projects. The topography of the shoreline of Tokyo Bay differs greatly from that of the pre-modern period, due to ongoing land reclamation projects. Tokyo Bay includes about 249 square kilometers of reclaimed land area in 2012. Aggregate household waste production is enormous in Greater Tokyo. There is little room for traditional garbage disposal sites. Waste is rigorously sorted at the household. Much of it is turned into ash and further recycled into Bay landfill.
Computer viruses have been a fact of life at least since the 1980s, if not before. They can cause companies to lose hours of working time, and they can also spread panic among computer users everywhere. There are, however, several distinct types of computer infection, all loosely referred to as viruses, and they each work in a slightly different way. A particularly nasty one is the worm, which is a program designed to sneak its way into an entire computer network and reproduce itself over and over again. Then there is the Trojan, which strictly speaking isn't a virus, but a piece of software that appears to do one thing, but actually does something malicious instead. The first printed books began to appear during the second quarter of the LS1H century. The earliest examples were put together in a number of different ways, sometimes leaving space for decorations and ornate capitals to be added by miniaturist painters, and sometimes 71 containing handwritten text alongside printed illustrations. Most of them had texts and pictures printed entirely from wood blocks, which is how they got the name, block books. Printing was normally done on separate leaves which were then bound together in book form. The obvious advantage of having printed text and visual images together on one sheet was quickly grasped by monks, who saw its potential as a means of spreading knowledge, and as an economic and effective way to get their message across to a wide audience. The monasteries, however, by no means had a monopoly on the production and sale of woodcut printing. In fact, probably the most profitable area of European printmaking was the production of playing cards. Nonetheless, the content of most surviving block books is essentially biblical. In any given population, about 10% of the people are left-handed, and this figure remains relatively stable over time. So-called handedness runs in families, but what causes it and why the proportion of left-handed to right-handed people is a constant are still a mystery. One thing we do know is that hand dominance is related to brain asymmetry. And it seems to be generally agreed that the human brain is profoundly asymmetric, and that understanding how this works will tell us much about who we are and how our brains work. Brain function is distributed into the left and right hemispheres, and this is crucial for understanding language, thought, memory, and perhaps even creativity. For right-handed people, language activity is mainly on the left side. Many left-handers also have left-side language dominance, but a significant number may have language either more evenly distributed in both hemispheres or else predominantly on the right side of the brain. Zika is more pernicious than public health officials anticipated. At present, it is circulating in more than 50 countries. And as of mid-May, 7 countries or territories have reported cases of microcephaly or other serious birth defects linked to the virus, which is transmitted by mosquito bites, blood transfusion, or sexual contact with an infected human. It can also be passed from mother to fetus during pregnancy. Despite Zika's vast range over almost 70 years, there is little genetic difference among the various strains, according to an analysis by researchers at the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston. For example, the strain currently in the Americas and another previously detected French Polynesia are practically indistinguishable from each other. Group in white box. Our sense of cinema as a site of commercial entertainment can be traced back to the Lumiere brothers. In December 1895 they attracted a fee-paying public in Paris to sit and watch flickering images on an illuminated screen. The commercial Pandora's box they opened was to blossom in a few years into a world cinema industry and, at its peak, the fantastical Hollywood. Yet in the 30 years in which this miraculous construction was accomplished, audiences rarely had to listen to films, only watch them. Hence, the early decades of cinema were characterized by the title, silent. In fact, there was a lot of noise, machinery, audiences, musicians, and commentators. Even so, the absence of the human voice and dialogue make the films seem rather strange when viewed by a modern audience. I use the word civilization now for the first time because before the Bronze Age there is nothing that we would define as civilization. Civilization involves the establishment of permanent dwelling areas that we call cities as opposed to villages. Agricultural villages will have existed all over the place in the Late Stone Age, in the Neolithic period, as it is known. But there is a difference, and the critical difference is that a city contains a number of people who do not provide for their own support. That is to say, they don't produce food. They need to acquire it from somebody else. Every day, on television, on the radio, and in the newspapers, we see, hear, and read about leaders and politicians making decisions that are clearly wrong-headed and that seem to us, the horrified watchers, listeners, and readers, counterproductive. To be reasonably impartial about such blunders, we must try to put aside for the moment how the decision might affect us as individuals. What we are looking for are decisions that are contrary to the interests of their makers. A glaring historical example of such stupidity would be the respective attempts of Charles XII, Napoleon Bonaparte, and Hitler to invade Russia despite the disasters it brought each of their predecessors. Now, when investigating these matters, we must tread carefully and remember that it is wrong to judge the past by the ideas of the present.